Hi, this is Patricia Stepler with Your Inside Power, where we are trying to help you to find the powers that you have inside of you to create the kind of life that you really want. So today we're talking about the lies that we tell ourselves. And James Allen said, we become what we think about. What kind of thoughts are going through your mind all day? And then Mahatma Gandhi said, man often becomes what he believes himself to be. So if you looked at the show description, it talked about there are two stories that we tell ourselves. The one we want to believe and the one we really believe. Now that might sound a little confusing to you, but we want to believe one thing consciously, but subconsciously, we believe something different. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Why does that happen? And how we can change that so that it doesn't continue to happen. So beliefs are your decision. You see, when we're born, we are born without beliefs. We don't have them. We start forming them. Now, sometimes they're formed for us, and I don't deny that at all. When you're very young, you can have the formation of beliefs from your parents or your grandparents or loved ones. There is some idea that there is some DNA, some genetically transferred beliefs, or beliefs are passed on from generation to generation in a way that are societal or family beliefs. And so we look at those beliefs, cultural beliefs. And we have these beliefs that become part of us. But when we're born, we are not born with those beliefs at all. They come to us through other people or events that happen in our life. And sometimes the stories we tell ourselves are something that we think about and we interpret one way when it happens to us. But then when we take a look and see maybe the dynamics of what really happened, then we reframe that story, and we can reframe that story because perception's everything, right? So your perception of an event and my perception of an event can be completely different. And because of that, we're going to have two different stories. Why is it that when an accident happens and a policeman goes to those people that witnessed it, they can find so many different stories or ideas about what actually happened? Because we all have a different point of view. We have a different perception. And so therefore, we're going to have different stories. And so then, it's up to the policeman to figure out, okay, well, what is the truth? And we have to do that with ourselves. We have a story we tell ourselves and a story we want to hear. And somewhere in the middle is probably where the truth is. And so we have to figure that one out and get to the bottom of that. So that's one thing we have to do. We also have to realize that everything that I'm sharing with you, and if you go back and watch some of the other episodes, the things I'm sharing with you, they're not hard to do. This is not something that's super complicated, but the execution of it is. And why is the execution of doing these things that I'm going to be sharing with you difficult? It's because you have to keep doing these things for some time period so that you start to believe them. And you have to keep doing these exercises, or you let these ideas run in your head for a while, because otherwise, what happens is you get to the point where you want something, you want that idea to be the reality, but it doesn't happen overnight. And we live in this very instantaneous society. We can pick up our phone and connect with the internet, and in a second we can find information. And so we think it should be so easy for us to do anything. And it is not. It takes time and persistence. Which is why most people live a very average life, and only a top 1, 2, 3% of people really live extraordinary lives, because they think differently and they do things differently than 97% of the population. And so if you want to move even close to them or to be part of that top 3%, you're going to have to start to think differently, and you're going to have to start to do things differently. And it takes both. It's not just thinking, it's action too. So we get so far and, long in life, and then we seem to get stuck. And I see this happening a lot with the clients that I work with. They can get to a certain level and then they sort of plateau, and they feel very frustrated because maybe they have a goal that's a bit higher, but they can't seem to reach that goal. And because of that frustration of being stuck just can start to be an annoyance. And, that's what leads people into depression and things like that, because they feel very stuck. I think of this with my dad. My dad so wanted to be a professor in a university. And he had the opportunity, but it would have meant moving. And my mom was so against moving that she discouraged it, and, we didn't move. And so my dad never fulfilled the dream that he had. And later on, he became very depressed. And I think it all went back to the fact that he wasn't doing what he really wanted to do. And so while he was teaching, it was not at the university level. I think it always bothered him. And you see, that happens to us too. We have something that we want to do, and maybe we can't figure out how to do that, or you get discouraged because somebody won't allow you to do that, and then you give up. But then that giving up eventually leads to frustration and possibly depression, because you didn't fulfill that dream and goal, and you don't know how to compensate for that. So if we want to go beyond, we're going to have to do something different. And, what we realize is when we get to that plateau, we've met all our needs. So all our basic needs are met, but to go to that extra point of having that extraordinary life, most of us don't know how to get to that type of thinking, because it's a different thought pattern. It's a different thought pattern when you can believe that you can do something extraordinary. But we have to stretch our thinking, and we have to believe that we can get there. Now, here's what happens. Because the way our mind works, consciously, we can believe something, but subconsciously we do not. And our beliefs keep us stuck. Those subconscious beliefs keep us stuck because that's where our paradigms are stored, our habitual patterns of behavior. And in order to change your results, you must change your habitual patterns of behavior. And that's not easy, because they are so ingrained and entrenched in our minds that it becomes a difficult thing to do. And that's why so few people really reach that level of success that they really want, that level that they dream about. Not that they can't do it, because we all have the same type of potential. We all have the potential to do it. That doesn't mean we're going to do it, because change is difficult. And if you don't really know how to change, and you don't have somebody helping you, then it becomes even more difficult, because now you're trying to learn through a book, or you're trying to learn through a program, but you don't have somebody to work with, which is why having a coach or a counselor is so important to you. So one thing we have to do is, when we start to get to that point where we're plateauing, we're questioning ourselves, we have to really figure out why and start questioning our beliefs. Is it the belief that we can't do it? Is it the belief that we're not capable? Is it one of the fears that I went through last week? And in the episode, in the previous week, we went through all these different fears that you can have that can cause that limiting belief. So what is it that's causing it? We really start to have to question our belief system. And then we have to look at, well, where did those beliefs come from? Are those beliefs that are generational within your family? Is this because this is the way your family has always thought about something? Is it society in general? And, you can go back through history and you can look through all kinds of historical books or great philosophers, and you will find exactly the same thing. There was a small group of people that understood how to change things, and their mindset was different, and they were the ones who were making all the money, and they were the ones that were super successful. When you look back, though, at the beginning of the 1900s, when all these inventions were coming out, and you start to see the people who did these inventions, they thought differently. And you see, that's where the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill really got its start, because in that book, it was talking about 500 of the most successful people in the world at that time and how they thought differently. And many of these people came from poverty or, little education, and yet they made great strides in themselves because they thought differently. They didn't think like society does. I remember when I was teaching school and we were trying to do this program. And of course, at that time, it was everybody has to go to college. Well, that's not true. Everybody does not have to go to college. In fact, there are people out there that it'd be better for them not to go to college, but that was the push. And I remember one of my colleagues telling this group of students, we were in a group together, and they were telling this group of students that if you don't go to college, you'll never amount to anything. And I was so irate because I don't believe that. There's no truth to that. There are examples all the time of people who did not go to college and are highly successful people. But that was the mantra. And that was what, was expected to be said. You got to go to college. Everybody's got to go to college. And that's a society thing. So you have to look at where it's coming from. Did it come from your parents? Did it come from your grandparents? Did it come from generations back? Did it come from the society? Did it come from things you learned at school? Your friends? Where do your beliefs come from? And you see, up until age 7 or 8, ideas are just going into your head and you have no filter. But about 7 or 8, you start to be able to think for yourself. And then you have to decide, well, what are you believing? Are you looking to some figure in the media and you're believing what they tell you to believe? Are you looking to some leader or so-called leader in your community and you're just believing what they believe? Or are you thinking for yourself? Because there's where a lot of our cultural problems come from. People don't think, and they just allow somebody else that they may have some respect for to lead the way, and then they just follow along. And that's not what we need to do. What we need to do is start thinking for ourselves and start really knowing who we are. And that takes time to really just think and write down, well, what is it that I believe? Well, why do I believe that? And start questioning those beliefs until you figure out who you are. Because I guarantee you, most people don't know who they are. They know who they think they are, or they know who they want to be, but they really don't take the time to really figure out who they are. So where are those beliefs coming from? Those beliefs we have do form our reality, and they make us who we are. But the good news is we can change. We don't have to be who we're projecting ourselves to the world. In fact, a lot of times the person we project to the world, it's not really who we are. We are projecting an image that other people expect us to project, but it might not be who we are at all. And we might not be comfortable. It might be something that we think we're supposed to be. But take some time, take a day, and just get someplace quiet and find out who you really are. And what is it that you really think? What is it do you like? just remind me, there's a movie called The Runaway Bride. And, every time she'd have a new boyfriend, she would keep running away from getting married at the last minute because she didn't know who she was. And so every time she'd have a new boyfriend, she would start eating, it was breakfast. What do you want for breakfast? What kind of eggs do you like? And it was whatever the current boyfriend liked, that's what she liked. Whatever that current boyfriend liked to do, activities, that's what she liked. And every time she would get to the point of her wedding day, she would run away. And she didn't know why, until it was pointed out to her that she had no clue who she was. She was trying to be who other people expected her to be instead of who she was. And once she figured out the person she was, then she was able to marry the right person for her. So it was a very cute story. But it tells us a lot about us, is we pretend to be somebody that we're not. So here's another thing we need to think about when it comes to the economy and our ideas. We create our own economy. It's our choice. If we decide to let the idea that there's economic disaster about to happen, we choose to participate in that. During the Great Depression, there's some millionaires, lots of millionaires made because they chose not to accept the fact that the world was in a depression, and they decided to think differently and do things differently and create the reality that they chose. So we have to keep that in mind when we create our own economy. We don't have to be part of a recession or depression. It's our choice. We've been given this great mind to choose. We just need to know how to use it. The words you speak, the thoughts you think, the actions you do are all reflection on your beliefs. So when you're thinking about why am I remaining stuck where I am, you need to start looking at what things are you saying and guard your thoughts. And, are you taking actions you need to do? If you believed you could really accomplish your goal. So let me say this another way. Maybe I can get a little clearer. If you have a goal, let's say to earn $50,000 a month, consciously, you can do it. You maybe even can figure out a plan as to how you can do it. But subconsciously, it's in conflict. And subconsciously, you don't believe you can do it. So when you're not in alignment, you're causing this confusion inside of you. And if you don't believe it, that's because subconsciously there's a limiting belief there. Maybe the limiting belief is that you're not smart enough, you're not qualified enough, you're too old, you're too young, you're too this, you're too that. But you have to figure out what that is, because until you figure out what that limiting belief is, you can't change it. And in order to have a different result, you must change the thought process, because it's the subconscious mind that controls your actions. And the reason you aren't acting is because you don't really believe you can do it. Once you shift that belief and you believe you can do something, your actions start to change. But it starts with thought first. That's why thinking is so important. So here's what most people do. Most people look at the result that they're having and they think about that result, and they continue to have the same feelings and they continue to do the same actions. What you have to do is to look at the results, say, okay, that's not the way I'm thinking. And we change the thoughts. And when we change the thoughts, we change the feelings, which change the actions, which change the results. So let's go back to that idea. So you're earning, let's say, $10,000 a month. And that's not what you want, but you keep focusing on that $10,000 and you keep thinking about that $10,000. And as you think about it, you have the feelings of that $10,000 and your actions remain the same and your results remain the same. You keep getting the $10,000, but now you have $50,000. That's your goal. And you decide, $10,000 isn't what I want. I want $50,000. So now instead of focusing on the 10,000, what you're doing is you're looking at the 50,000. What can I do? How can I get that $50,000? So you're starting with thought first. You're not looking at the result. You're starting with thought. You're looking at what can you do? And so you start to develop a different idea and different thought process. And your emotions are different. You're getting onto a higher frequency, a higher vibration, because now you're not thinking of where you are. You're thinking of the possibility of 50,000 a month. And so you're focusing on that. And as you do that, your thoughts, your emotions are on a different plane. Your actions are on a different plane, and therefore your results are going to be on a different plane. So it all starts with thought. And when you have that thought, and you have that excitement, and you have that motivation, then you're moving to a higher idea. So here's what I want you to think about. What beliefs do you have about your results or your goals and what you want? What are those current beliefs? And what beliefs do you need in order to change them? So look at your current beliefs. What are your beliefs telling you about your results? And what do you need to change? Fix in your mind what it is that you want. Start with a thought. What do you want? What do you really, really want? That's what I help clients do all the time. What is it you want? Well, let's build this possibility. Let's build this picture in your mind. Let's build this picture in your thoughts and in your words, and then in your actions. So how would you see the world, and what stories would you tell yourself if you reached your goal? If you were at that goal, let's do it that way. If you were at the goal, what stories would you tell yourself? What beliefs would you have if you were at your goal? And then compare the two lists. What beliefs do you have that are keeping you stuck? What beliefs do you want that would get you to that goal? See, you have to get in harmony, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. So the more you get into your conscious mind and you tell yourself you can do these things through affirmations, through writing out your goal, through pictures, whatever it is that helps you. And the same thing doesn't work for everybody. I know some people that can write their goal down 100 times a day, and that's what works for them. For me, that doesn't work. That just makes my hand hurt. But, so for me, it's visualizing a goal, maybe writing a goal once or twice, and then thinking about it and thinking about the possibilities. And that gives me the ideas. So some people, it's a vision board, having those visual pictures there of what it is they want. For each person, it could be something a little different. So when you work with a coach like I am, I help you to find what's best for you, because not everything works for everybody. We're all different, right? We can't all do the exact same thing. We have to do similar types of things to get there, but it doesn't have to be the exact same process. So we need to get your conscious mind and your subconscious mind on the same page, right? We have to get you consciously believing you can earn that $50,000 a month, and subconsciously believing that you can earn that $50,000 a month, and then allow the subconscious mind to help you to develop a plan. Now, this doesn't mean that, you just sit around thinking about it and then you wait for 10 months to get the subconscious mind to work. No. Start somewhere with some action and start before you're ready. That's what Napoleon Hill says. The subconscious will always win because the subconscious mind is in control. So we need to retrain our brain. We need to do different things, and we need to get that idea into our subconscious mind so you can start to believe it. How did you get to the point where you can believe what you have now? You thought about it. But see, we do it so it somewhat comes naturally to a certain extent. But when you want to make that quantum leap, it's not natural at all. You've got to do something different. So we have to focus. When we focus on a bigger vision, it will overcome those limiting beliefs. Did you hear what I said? Not think about it. Focus. Focus as many times during the day on that goal. Focus. Have it consume your thinking. And as you have that happen, it will overcome those limiting beliefs because you're thinking differently. This is what the elite people do. They visualize, they affirm, they get emotionally involved in that idea. And they talk about it, maybe just to themselves. They don't want to. So one thing with caution, when you have a really big goal, you don't want to tell just anybody. And that's where a coach is, or a mentor is really super important, because they're going to believe in you and they're going to help you refine it and get it into a way where you will accomplish it. So that's why it's so important to work with somebody who believes and knows how to help you to get to those goals. And then you have to realize that it's going to take small steps. It's not going to happen overnight. There's nothing get rich quick about anything I'm sharing with you. But you have to realize there's small steps along the way. And sometimes it's really difficult. I know it's hard for me. Sometimes I feel like, I can work 8 hours or 10 hours in a day and I feel like I accomplished nothing. That's not true. It's not true at all. Because even when I'm taking the time to refine my goal and to think about, I am working hard and that's accomplishing something, I may not see the results for 2 or 3 months, because you see the results never come first. It's like you have to put wood on a fire before it's going to take off. You don't say, hey, make a fire where there's no wood, right? That's where your goals are. You have to make sure that you're doing the work first before you're going to see the result. So this is why most people never really find the success that they want, because they never take the time to figure out how to change their actions by changing their thinking. Change your beliefs, change your story you would tell. What story do you really want? What's the story you want to tell people? Starts with awareness. You have to be aware of where your limiting beliefs are so you know what to change. And then you have to do the actions that will bring about the results. So perfect time. Please reach out to me and I'll be happy to chat with you. Love to have you come on live on the show so we can interact and really do like a coaching call right here. So, my name's Patricia Stepler. Your Inside Power is the name of the show. Love to have you come live and really be able to interact with some of these ideas. So I want you to make it a great day.